first question, and I'm curious to hear from each of you. So when you're faced with strategic uncertainties, right, recognizing the tactical realities, tell us how you make decisions that get you to the outcome that you were hoping for.
Well, interestingly enough, the Army has a very, very formal process of decision making. And they teach it to you from the time you're a brand new second lieutenant and beat it into you until you have it. It's just muscle memory. So, we give you the mission, you analyze the mission, think about all of the different pieces and parts of that mission. And this is where your staff comes in so very important, is you give that mission to the staff and they analyze their part in bringing you all of the tactical realities, and you blend those together and listen to each of the staff members and try and make decisions that will accomplish the mission, protect your people, and keep people alive. That's really the bottom line.
I'm curious if you've replicated that decision process outside of the military, right? Does that, I guess, methodology that was so ingrained in you, does it work in other parts of life?
It absolutely does. I took that with me when I went out into the corporate world. And now you have to relax a little bit because it's not quite the formal, rigid process it is in the military. But the same things, you sit down with your staff and you analyze missions and try to come out with the best way to accomplish whatever it is you're going to accomplish. Because the bottom line is that whether you're in corporate world or you're in the military, you have a mission. Whether it's to make money, gather customers, or win wars, you have a mission that you have to do. So get all the input from your staff and try to make rational decisions. It also involves the staff in what the process is and gets their buy-in to whatever the decision is at the end. And that's very important because that's what motivates people to do their very best.
That's great. Yet another example about how it's a collaborative process and not just top-down orders all the time, right? Probably not a lot of people realize that. Annette, what are your thoughts on decision making?
I love how Mary framed that, because that does lay out the foundation of how we all have a common framework for our decision-making process in the military. And for me, as a young officer, I was in my unit for maybe 3 months and we deployed. And guess what? Some units at the time, and probably existing today, didn't use any of that process. It was complete chaos getting out the door. For example, they loaded the plane, loaded the people, and oops, we had to stop about 2 hours later because they didn't, take into account the weight for the fuel. And for me, and I bring that experience up because in my first 4 years with the military police, we deployed 4 times in 4 years. And these were, real world missions. And so it was ingrained in me very early that this isn't a practice session. We're not doing training for fun and goofing off. These are people's lives. This is time. And, even the people deployed, yes, those are our soldiers, but their families are back home, and to see that whole dynamic. And so when, after going through these back-to-back deployments, that influenced me to, the military we went through what they call military decision-making, but we have a school, and it's called the Strategic Studies for Advanced, I can't even say it, it's my school too, SAMS, a School of Advanced Military Studies. Yeah. And it's considered elite. I say that I don't consider myself elite, but it pulled me to it. All my fears of applying for it went by the wayside because I wanted to know, why did we goof up the fuel that first deployment? Why on our third deployment, were we sitting on our rucksacks for, it was supposed to be a couple hours, and a day later, and they never wanted to move us because they thought, oh, the plane's coming. A day and a half later, you're still on the tarmac sleeping and, carrying your ruck around until you get picked up. So I want to know who made those decisions. How are they made at the lowest level? How are they made at the highest level? And going to that course as, 8 years into the military helped me frame problem sets going forward, deploying, OIF and OEF were going on then, and to take my lessons learned as a young officer take all the processes and incredible insights we can get from our military training, curriculum and opportunities, and now continue to apply it to the people and to the mission and do it better each time we go, because we have all this baseline to do it. So and to Mary's point, it is a team sport, right? When you're trying to figure out how to get out the door and deploy, we have what we bring together all the subject matter experts. So there's a lot of compromise and a lot of negotiation for resources, for timing, for what type of equipment are you going to take. And Mary, you have a great story on the equipment. I mean, we were coming out of Panama, urban environment, mount our equipment, tropical environment, and we get the warning to, hey, could you guys pivot and depart Panama and head out to this thing called Saudi Arabia? We're doing a thing called Desert Shield, and to watch Mary go through I was just a young lieutenant, but to listen and learn how she was like, hey, that's a whole different type of war, or conflict that we're responding to. We need our equipment. We need different equipment. And my soldiers need to be outfitted with different uniforms and something as detailed as footwear and what types of socks we should be deploying with. I mean, listening and learning that at that, I was only in the military at that point, maybe 2.5 years. It's just it's not just about, and I know it's a bigger question. You asked about strategic uncertainties and how do you do a decision tree. I think you focus on the issue immediately in front of you, but watching Colonel Maier at the time also at the same time turn to the staff and say, okay, now big picture, right? What else do we need to accomplish the end state? So we have a near-term target. Tell me your thoughts. And then we have this other, issue. We might be doing a full-up ground war, not an urban environment anymore. What does that look like? I don't know. I was new. I don't know, but I went to go find out. I could all the information, get the maps. I was a map person at the time. We used to do a lot of maps and what I was doing. But everybody was mobilized in their area of expertise to bring a piece of the solution together, and to have that experience and knowledge at a young age and in real world environment. We go through that in all our big training environments, but this is real world mission. To be under the leadership of Mary, I think, we'll talk about it, as we go through this, and I know she gets all irritated and, but I think that's what bonds you and it builds this trust. And if you build that trust, we can solve really any problem. We might not solve it perfect, but we'll get through it because we know the people to our right and left have the right intent and they're doing the very best. And we can recover if we don't get it perfect, right? Because you're never going to get perfect. But for me, those trying to bring together that whole picture that she described, from that human component of just figuring out the immediate and really lifting your head up over the horizon, over then how do you still take care of folks.
That was gold.
Amazing perspective on how to make decisions. And what I heard from that, it's not only making decisions in terms of the pre-planning, but it's also like what happens when the decision doesn't go the way that you expect, and making sure you have that feedback loop without the finger pointing and without the emotions and without the defensiveness, right? And one thing that we're seeing a lot in business environments, especially recently, and I think it might have been IDEO, the famous design firm that coined the term fail fast. But everyone loves to say fail fast, right? Just jump in, try, and if it doesn't work, just stop right away. But I think what we don't often leave ourselves time for in a business context, or even in certain personal situations or volunteer situations, is doing that retrospective or that after action report and saying, okay, why did this go wrong? How do we make sure it doesn't go differently next time? What do we need to fix within the systems and the structures, right? To, again, have a better outcome next time. So that was really cool. Thank you for sharing.
So I'm gonna jump in and say, I remember one thing about service is like everything was yesterday. I don't know how Annette and Mary feel about that. And it's not like I hang on to stuff. I'm just saying some of these memories are so vivid and were so impactful, they don't leave. And they leave a stitch on your behaviors, on your memories. But I came into Mary and Annette's life. I was part of the 4th Infantry Division at the time, and I worked for some really amazing people. Dennis Fangman, Blackshaw, Garrity was over there, I think, for a little while. And Mary may not remember this, but the reason I ended up working for Mary is I got in a little bit of trouble, which I know shocks people listening and shocks you. And they were in Panama when I got in trouble, and it wasn't small trouble. It was significant. But Blackshaw and Fangman, knew that Mary would probably have an impact on me, and something happened with her existing driver at the time, so she needed a replacement. They threw me in the ring for the job, and I got it. I don't remember the details why. I'm sure she was scratching her head at the time, like, who the hell is this kid? But I did get a front row seat to watch what Annette was describing, like watching them come back from Panama when I was in a divisional asset unit, going into the field all the time, doing law enforcement ops. Like my brain, and I was a 19-year-old kid. I was in for like 10 months when I met Mary. But watching all of that work happen and that decision tree and how busy, like I thought I knew what busy was until I watched these two and Annette's peers operate. And then the meetings that Mary and I were going to, I wasn't in the meetings, I got her there. But watching her come out of those moments, and she carried this binder. I don't know if you remember it, man, but you had this like binder that you carried. It's like stitched in my brain, and it was filled to the brim with knowledge and notes and things. And her follow-up was unbelievable. When you're a kid and you see that and you're getting ready to go off far away, it's so impactful. So Annette, you described all that perfectly. It was just bringing back so many memories for me.